Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Will Charlton. Welcome to another edition of Noteworthy in the NCAA, a weekly podcast here on the ETB network, talking about the latest happenings going on in the college sports landscape. Happy you're joining us on this Monday afternoon. Before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe to Empty the Bench Network on YouTube. I'm part of the podcast Forever Power 5. So if you want to follow that show, that's at FP5ETB on social media, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. Make sure to follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Will Charlton H13, on Instagram at Will Charlton TV. And so lots of things to get into here on this episode of Noteworthy in the NCAA. The college football playoff is coming up this coming weekend, the first rounds. The Heisman Trophy has been announced. New men's basketball AP poll. We're going to take a look at the new net rankings and new KenPom rankings as well. And also we will talk about the NCAA volleyball tournament, which is getting down to the Final Four coming up on Thursday night. So lots of fun stuff to talk about in this show today. But first, let's start off with Fernando Mendoza winning the Heisman Trophy. So Fernando Mendoza, the Indiana quarterback, gets the nod for the Heisman. He was the odds-on favorite going into the show on Saturday night. Not surprised he won it at all. I will say, though, Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech got snubbed of a appearance in New York because even though Travis Hunter won it last year, I think Jacob Rodriguez, just for how dominant he was as a linebacker this year, I mean, you look at his stats, you look at everything he did this year, I think he deserved to at least be in the contention for the Heisman Trophy. I think Mendoza was pretty much the clear-cut favorite to win it ever since Indiana kind of just kept on keeping on. And then obviously winning the Big Ten championship was the cherry on top of everything for Mendoza to get the win for the Heisman Trophy. But yeah, a phenomenal season for a Big Ten champion, Fernando Mendoza. He comes in and gives Indiana its first ever Heisman Trophy. And I will say this, like if you did not watch his speech that he gave, it is a phenomenal 7-minute watch. I mean, Fernando Mendoza, just genuine, pure guy, just gave all credit to everyone else but himself. I would highly recommend you go watch his Heisman speech if you have not watched it yet. Very inspirational, very cool. Hard not to cheer for the guy. Really hard not to cheer for the guy. And it sounds like he's just a great guy. Sounds like a great guy and very family-oriented. So, yeah, I definitely recommend you go watch the Heisman speech if you have not yet. But taking a look at some of Mendoza's stats from this year, he had a 71.5% completion rating, threw for almost 3,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, had a passer rating of 181.4 this season. I mean, look, it's also one of these deals that you took Indiana, a team that had the most FBS losses of all time. It's some sort of stat like that. I'm pretty sure that actually is the stat. I might be wrong, though. But from what I understand, Indiana had like the most power or most FBS losses of all time. They were an irrelevant program until last year. And now Fernando Mendoza becomes the first ever Heisman winner in program history. Just an unbelievable turnaround story for this Indiana team. I mean, they've been just such a crazy team to keep track of the last 2 years, because last year coming into the season, obviously Curt Cignetti comes in, brings all of his guys from JMU where they had a lot of success, but they come in and they take the country by storm. I mean, they go 10-0. They lose that game to Ohio State, obviously, where it's like, okay, these guys aren't really like real contenders. They still make the college football playoff, but lose to Notre Dame in the first round. This year, I'd say they're probably the favorite to win it all. And you couldn't say that last year, but adding pieces like they did with Fernando Mendoza, transferring from Cal, obviously, it's just that was one of those moves that kind of really put Indiana into the driver's seat to be where they are right now. And look, Indiana was not very respected coming into the year. I want to say that they were ranked 20th, something like that preseason, somewhere around like 20 to 23. And then their win they had against Illinois, sadly, where they just boat raced the Illini, was like, whoa, okay, so these guys might be legit. Then they just keep winning and winning and winning. They won a handful of close games, but then you get to the Big Ten championship, they beat Ohio State who was looking like the best team in the country, wasn't looking like they were going to lose a game. Ohio State was like that team was like, prove you can beat them. Prove you can beat them. And now Indiana's the team where it's like, prove you can beat them. I mean, it's crazy to see like how this Indiana turnaround has kind of thrown like Mendoza, for instance, into this national recognition conversation. Mendoza won all sorts of awards. He won the Maxwell. He won the Davy O'Brien. Obviously the Heisman. He won one other. Was it the Walter? He might have won the Walter Camp as well. Is that the one I'm thinking of? Let me see. Mendoza Awards. Nope. Fernando Mendoza. Let's see. I'm trying to, because I know that he won. Yes, he won the O'Brien. He won the Maxwell. He won the Walter Camp, and then Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year and AP Player of the Year. So, yeah, I did get that right. Awesome. Shows that I somewhat know my stuff, right? No, but Mendoza just, you look at like some of the games where, I mean, obviously he wasn't phenomenal by any means in a lot of the games this year. He did a lot. He did things that he had to do to get Indiana their wins. And I will say this, like, it was kind of a down year for the Heisman Trophy in a sense, because there really wasn't a player that stood out above the rest. Like, I guess, Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty last year, like, obviously the finalists were Mendoza, Julian Sand, Diego Pavia, and Jeremiah Love, which again, I think Jacob Rodriguez should have been in there. But that's just me. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me, though. I think that it's just I think that it's one of those type of things that you look at Fernando Mendoza, you're just so impressed. I mean, Indiana is just such a phenomenal story, and it's so cool to see a team that was just abysmal. They were awful. Like I said, and now they are the team to beat this year. They're the only undefeated team going into the playoff. They're the number one overall seed, deservedly so. And I think it's gonna be. I gotta see them prove they can get beat. Now I will say this. I think that they're going to face a really, really tall task if they have to rematch Oregon or play Texas Tech. Like that game in the what would be the quarterfinals is going to be. Quarterfinals or semis? Semifinals. Yeah, semifinals. So, because they'll get the winner of the Alabama-Oklahoma game, which that's going to be tough in itself too, obviously. But if they were to get to that semifinal game where they will play Texas Tech or Oregon, which I think it would be Texas Tech, I think the Red Raiders could definitely be the team that beats them. I mean, the Red Raiders are one hell of a team when they're healthy. I mean, we've seen it the whole year. Like, I know they played in a weaker Big 12 this year, but they dominated. That when they were healthy, they dominated. If Barron Morton was healthy in that game against Arizona State, I bet they win that one. But yeah, so Fernando Mendoza wins the Heisman as well as the Davy O'Brien and Maxwell Awards. And now we're going to shift our focus over to the college football playoff first round coming up this weekend, where Oregon is playing James Madison, Oklahoma is playing Alabama, Ole Miss is playing Tulane, and then Texas A&M is playing Miami. So the first game on Friday night gets started with Oklahoma and Alabama. I'm not going to go into this too much because we'll dive more deeply into it on this week's episode of Forever Power 5. So make sure you tune into that. But I think that these games, and like I was talking about on the show last week, it's hard for me to really get excited for a game like Tulane, Ole Miss, or a game like James Madison, Oregon. It's just because those teams are not two of the best 12 teams of the country. And this model will never get it right. They never will. But because of how they have it set up, where at least 5 conference champions have to make it, they're never going to get it correct. Like, there's never going to be the correct 12 teams. There's never going to be the correct 16 tems. Like, if it expands to 16 or 24, whatever it may be, a team's going to get mad for going to 8-4 now. Like, Texas was mad they didn't get in because they went 9-3. A team's going to get mad because they were 8-4. Like, it's just they're never going to get it right. It's never going to be right. Teams are always going to be mad. Like Notre Dame, they were pissed off. I get it. But don't lose to Miami. Like, if it was a situation once again where it had to come down to Notre Dame, Miami, where Alabama was not the team that was facing up against those two, because obviously, again, Alabama was not punished for losing the SEC championship. Notre Dame, Miami were fighting for that last spot in. And because of that, I think they also had more pressure to add an ACC team just because Duke was not going to get in. So that's the thing about that. Again, Miami should have been playing in the ACC championship, though. They should have been. But regardless, yeah. So the CFP first round is this weekend. Very excited for the game on Friday night and the 3 games on Saturday. It's going to be a very it's going to be a very fun few games. I think that I don't really think Oregon or Ole Miss is going to have a problem, but the Texas A&M Miami games and Alabama Oklahoma should be very, very fun. Like I said, I'm going to take Alabama to get revenge in Oklahoma. I think the Tide's going to be able to get past the Sooners. Oklahoma, they got the win over Alabama earlier in the year. It's very hard to beat a team twice, and Georgia proved that against Alabama in the SEC championship. But I think Alabama's going to win that game on the road. They've proven they can win on the road. They beat Georgia on the road. Georgia beat Oklahoma. Did they play each other? I feel like they did. I got to look this up now because now I'm questioning myself. I feel like I remember Georgia played Oklahoma this year. Nope, they did not. Okay. So never mind. I think I was more so thinking that, I don't know what I was thinking. Well, regardless. Anyways, yeah, no. So Georgia did not play Oklahoma. Sorry about that. But, teams like Oklahoma's weird. Like Oklahoma's really weird. Like you see them play really well against teams like Alabama where they won that game, but then they got annihilated by Texas. Like they lost to Ole Miss at home. Like Oklahoma is not vulnerable at home. It'll be rocking in Norman on Friday night. Don't get me wrong, but I think Alabama's going to be able to get revenge on there. Alabama lost there last year, and that was kind of the game that took them out of the playoff in that sense because Alabama went 9-3. So I think overall Alabama's going to be wanting some revenge. They won't want to lose a third straight game to Oklahoma. So that's going to be a fun one on Friday night. I'm picking Alabama to move on in that one, and then obviously Oregon, obviously Ole Miss, and I'm going to go Texas A&M to get the job done against Miami. And I'll give more so my reasoning coming up on this week's edition of Forever Power 5. But before we move on, I actually want to talk about the FCS football semifinals coming up this weekend. The FCS football semifinals are I don't know if any of you guys have been watching why is this only showing for? I don't know why it's only showing this. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. Yeah, so the FCS football semifinals feature Montana playing Montana State. We'll get into that in a second. And then Villanova playing Illinois State. Illinois State has been one of the craziest stories across the FCS in these playoffs. But I want to first talk about Montana State, the Brawl of the Wild. Montana State are arch rivals. I mean, these two teams despise each other. I live in Montana right now, and I've been able to sort of kind of follow the football teams. Those two teams despise each other when they're playing against each other. It is a very fun rivalry. It's down in Bozeman. Montana State gets to host it. In the final week of the regular season, Montana State beat Montana in Missoula, Montana, where University of Montana is. So that was a road win for the Bobcats. That was a very exciting game. Montana State won 31-28. So that's going to be a phenomenal game on Saturday at 2 p.m. ABC. If you're not doing anything, I'd highly recommend you tune into that game on ABC on Saturday. It's going to be a fun one. I know the college football playoff will be on as well. But I'm telling you, that's going to be worth watching because Montana State is going to be a phenomenal football game. It's the first time ever those two schools have met in the postseason for the FCS. And the winner of that game will be the odds-on favorite to win the national championship in the FCS because the winner of Illinois State and Villanova is nowhere near ranked as high as both those teams are. Montana State's going to be very fun. It's number 2 in the FCS versus number 3 in the FCS. It's going to be a really, really fun game. I'm going to be at the game in person on Saturday, so I'm very excited to be at that one. Get to go experience that for the first time, a Bobcat Grizzly game. So very excited for that. And I think that's going to be worth watching. So if you got nothing going on Saturday at 2 p.m., well, 2 p.m. for me, but 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Mountain Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time, wherever it may be. I definitely recommend you tune into it. The other semifinal, Illinois State, Villanova, 2 teams who have both won in upsets. Villanova just beat Tarleton State, who people were saying Tarleton State was going to be a team they expect to see in the national championship game because of what they've done this year, beating Army on the road and getting an FBS win, which isn't very common anymore, seeing an FCS team beat an FBS team. But Army suffered a loss to Tarleton State. But then Villanova was down 14-3 this past weekend at Tarleton State and came around and got the job done. They outscored them 23-7 the rest of the way, won 26-21. Actually the game came down to a 4th down where Tarleton State threw the ball into the end zone and the receiver couldn't get a foot down. He caught it, but he couldn't get a foot down. So it was a turnover on downs. Villanova then went on to get a first down and ice the game after that. Villanova's the 12th seed in the FCS, so they've got back-to-back upset wins of Lehigh, who is, I believe, undefeated, if I'm not mistaken. I think Lehigh was undefeated going into that game against Villanova, and Tarleton State was 12-1. So Villanova has picked up some nice steam overall lately. And then Illinois State. Talk about the Redbirds here. So Illinois State 2 weeks ago beat North Dakota State, who North Dakota State has been the cream of the crop in the FCS. They were number one in the FCS, undefeated. They were receiving votes in an AP poll, like going into that game. I'm dead serious. North Dakota State was receiving AP poll votes going into that game against Illinois State. The Redbirds upset them 29-28. Their quarterback threw 5 interceptions in that game, and they still won. Unbelievable. I mean, that is seriously one of the most shocking upsets like you'll ever see in college football. Illinois State was a 23.5-point underdog in that game and still won. And this past weekend, they beat UC Davis on the road. So now Illinois State is playing. I'm trying to remember what the final score is. I think it was. Hold on. I got to get the final score of the UC Davis game. Yeah, 42-31. They beat UC Davis. And honestly, they controlled that whole game. I mean, they and what's crazy is they lost a game to Southern Illinois to end the year 37-7. Like they were not coming in hot either. But now they've reeled off 3 straight playoff wins, and now they're in the semifinals. I mean, it's crazy to see this Illinois State team. They lost a game by 30 in the final game of the regular season to Southern Illinois, and now all of a sudden they're playing for a berth of the national championship game for the FCS. What a crazy turnaround! So yeah, Villanova, Illinois State Saturday. That's after the Montana State game. 2 fun games. I highly recommend you tune into them. So now let's shift our focus over to some men's basketball. Talk about the new AP poll that came out today. I'm going to get it up here just so I know what I'm talking about. Let's see, where is it? Got to get it up here. I think this is. Yes. So Arizona stays number 1. Arizona is looking phenomenal. They just beat Alabama by 21, essentially on the road. I'm pretty sure that game is in Birmingham, Alabama. So they just beat Alabama in what's a pseudo road game, even though it's a neutral court. But Arizona is looking like a phenomenal team. Michigan's looking like a phenomenal team. They're 10-0 now. They just won another game by double digits. Michigan and Arizona are looking like the 2 teams that are like on the elite level. You could probably put Duke right there with them. Duke's number 3. Duke's also 10-0. Iowa State's looking really good too. Iowa State just barely hung on against Iowa. I wouldn't put Iowa State among that line yet. They're like right below. They're number 4, but they're right below. They're still undefeated. It's just because they don't have like the exact. I mean, shoot though, man. They beat Purdue by 23 at home or whatever that was. I don't know. Iowa State's right there. I don't know if they're among that tier of teams yet, but they're right there. UConn's right there as well. They're 5. Purdue is 6. Gonzaga 7. Gonzaga's looking pretty good. All 10 wins have been by double digits for Gonzaga this year. They just beat UCLA late Saturday night as well. Houston 8. Michigan State 9. Spartans are looking really good. even though they've survived kind of a scare against a Penn State team who's not very good. BYU 10, and then Vanderbilt's still moving up. Vanderbilt's still undefeated. They're 13. Arkansas is moving up. They're up to 14 from 17. Nebraska is one of the teams who is really making some national headlines right now because they have won. They are 11-0, and they just beat Illinois on the road on Saturday, and that game was heartbreaking. But they scored. They hit a buzzer-beating three-pointer to win on the road at Illinois on Saturday. Very disappointing game for the Illini, who dropped down to 18 this week, but Nebraska all of a sudden up to 15, undefeated, looking like they might be a contender in the Big Ten this year. Fred Hoiberg is doing a great job with that program. Not a whole lot of talent on that team either. So, I mean, what Fred Hoiberg is doing with that team is pretty damn impressive. First 11-0 start in program history. And also, get this, the Cornhuskers have never, not once, won a tournament game in program history. They have never won an NCAA tournament game in program history. This could be the year that changes. This could definitely be the year that changes. Kansas making some jumps up to 17. Texas Tech down to 19 after suffering a loss to Arkansas. Florida is 6-4. The defending national champions now down to 23. And now Georgia cracks the rankings with a 9-1 record at 25. So that's the new men's basketball poll for you. And I know he said we'll talk about the KenPom rankings here. The KenPom rankings still have Gonzaga at number 2 this week. Michigan's number 1. Iowa State's 3. Arizona's 5, which is pretty interesting. But the KenPom rankings are the truest way to determine how a team really is. And yeah, what's interesting is that they still have 6-4 Florida at 13, but that's just because of the metrics that the team has shown. Florida's 4 losses have all been to power conference opponents who are really good. I mean, they lost to UConn, Arizona, Duke, and who else did they lose to? They lost one other game. I'm trying to remember who it is. But yeah, they lost to UConn at Madison Square Garden this past week. They lost to Arizona and Las Vegas to start the year, and they lost a true road game at Duke and just barely lost. I mean, they barely lost to UConn, barely lost to Duke. They actually had a chance to beat UConn late in the game, too. I'm blanking out who their other losses right now, but yeah, they got 4 of them. So yeah, it's the KenPom rankings have undefeated Nebraska at 21, undefeated Vanderbilt at 11. Let's see. But yeah, the rest of the undefeated teams are right up there in the top 5. Gonzaga is the only team who has a loss that's in the top 5, but Gonzaga's look phenomenal too. So yeah, that's the KenPom rankings this week. And then now I want to talk about the NCAA volleyball tournament to close things out here today. The NCAA volleyball tournament is electric. I mean, if you have been watching, you're missing out. I promise you. If you have not been watching, you're missing out. I'm not very innocent of that, or not very. I'm not innocent of that either. I just kind of started watching the regional finals, and man, those were 4 exciting matches. So on Sunday, Nebraska volleyball 33-0. They have not lost a match the entire year. They have been dominant, ran through the Big Ten, which is the best volleyball conference in the country, didn't lose a single match the entire season. Texas A&M comes in, wins the first 2 sets against them, and is able to hang on in 5 to give Nebraska its only loss this season. To not see Nebraska, who was the number 1 overall seed in the Final Four, is stunning. I mean, Texas A&M had to play quite literally perfect volleyball to beat Nebraska, and they did. Like, that was an unbelievable showing from Texas A&M. That was a lot of fun to watch. And then Wisconsin beat Texas on the road 3-1. Wisconsin played great. The Badgers are looking like a real good team in volleyball once again. I think they won the national championship in 2018, I believe it was. And then yeah, so Pittsburgh is also a team who's been great this year. They took down Purdue in 4 sets in the semifinals, and then Kentucky also made it to the Final Four as well. Kentucky, I'm trying to remember who they played. They swept Creighton. They swept Creighton to advance to the Final Four. Kentucky beat Creighton to advance onto the Final Four. So it's been a it was a really fun volleyball season. It's been a really fun volleyball season. The two semifinals are on Thursday night on ESPN. Wisconsin, Kentucky, and Pittsburgh facing off with Texas A&M. Just shocking to see that it's not Nebraska-Pittsburgh. I mean, Nebraska-Pittsburgh being a semifinal in the first place was kind of crazy because those have been kind of the two best teams this whole year. But not seeing Nebraska anymore this season is just it's crazy. It's crazy. And if you've been watching the volleyball tournament, you know what I'm talking about. If not, I highly recommend, just like with the FCS semifinals, you tune into these two matches on Thursday night. I'm going to try my best too because I want to watch them. But yeah, the volleyball tournament's a lot of fun, and it has been one crazy ride, especially, like I said, seeing Texas A&M beat Nebraska. That was just stunning. So great for the Aggies. It's their first ever appearance in the national semifinals. So great for that program. But yeah, should be a very fun couple of matches coming up on Thursday night. But that's going to do it for this edition of Noteworthy in the NCAA. Thanks for tuning in. Once again, I'm Will Charlton. And make sure to follow all of us on social media at ETB Network, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it may be. Follow me on Twitter at Will Charlton H13, on Instagram at Will Charlton TV, and we'll see you back here next week. Thanks for tuning in.